was a the
So
original photograph.
wait, Andy. So let me go ahead and introduce some. This is going to go on YouTube, everybody. So I've started the recording. Good afternoon, everybody. This is today we're going to have a critique for Art 192, and it is the digital painting assignment. We have half a dozen people here and some. So if you have turned in your project and you wish to participate, then that's what we will do. There are a couple of people who aren't here today that I do want to show you their work, just to show you what I was going for. And I'll talk about that as we talk about each of the projects. Okay, so go for it, Andy. Talk to us a little bit.
Yes. So for the digital painting, I chose a photo of the Nevada canyons that we're passing towards Vegas. I chose to go for a more wispy sort of watercolor aesthetic for it. So I chose a lot of more softer pastel colors for it, for the sky, the sunset, for the mountains, the desert, and a lot of the bushes that we were passing by, and for also for the roads.
Okay, so a couple of things. Number one, you did follow my directions and did in part what I had hoped for. I had hoped for something a little bit more representational, but it's very abstract. And I don't know if you're familiar with maybe Mark Rothko paintings, and has that feel to it. So the most important thing, when, at least from my perspective, and after we watched the videos from lynda.com on digital painting and also did the exercise, one of the most important things in doing a digital painting from my perspective is that that you decimate every bit of the photograph first. And if you wish to bring part of it back in, but abstract it or in a more brush, add extreme brush strokes to it, then that's perfectly legitimate. And that's what you've done. The colors that you've chosen are very, subtle. They're very muted. I don't know that it appears to be a watercolor. It looks to me, more of an oil treatment of the painting, and it works. I don't know that I would, I would associate what you've done, and maybe because you have adhered to the colors of the photograph with a landscape that's been abstracted. And so that for me works. I would probably enhance some of the colors a little bit, but that would be my painting. That would be my taste. So yeah, you followed the assignment to a T and have done a pretty good job. I think I would probably, one of the things when you abstract something is that other elements of a painting become important, like the brush strokes themselves. Colors, obviously. And when I say brush strokes, that means that the texture of the stroke comes forward and becomes an important element of the painting, at least from a formal perspective, formal point of view. So I would probably go back in. Again, this is something I think you could do, is you could take a wet brush, and you don't want to pick up any color or anything, but one that will apply significant texture to parts of it and enhance some of the parts. You've already done that a little bit in the midsection here, where I can see these vertical strokes, which is really kind of nice. I might do that a little bit more down here in the bottom. And you have horizontal strokes going in here in the green below midpoint. I don't know that you would necessarily need to add it to the top or sky portion. But that's probably what the only thing that I would do. I would, enhance the textural qualities a little bit. Okay. Does that make sense, Andy?
Yes,
or no?
thank you.
Does anybody else have a comment or would like to give us your input on Andy's painting. And I will elevate you. I'll allow you to talk. No? Oh, wow. Okay. So, okie doke. So let's go. And you can see your painting, right? Okay. So let me go switch back to bridge and let's go to the next one. Is no, he's not here. Andy, or I don't think it's Andy, but A. Martinez isn't here. So let me go ahead and move ahead, and we can come back to some of these. Johnson. Delvin Pitts is not here. We have Diana. Let's go ahead and talk about yours. So I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk. Okay, and I'm going to mute Andy here. Diana, are you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. I presume everybody can hear you too.
Good evening, everybody. So for this project, I choose a picture of a token because I like it. I first tried doing a picture of my nephew, but I found it really hard for my first time. I used some oil painting brushes.
Okay.
The background was really blurry, so it was kind of hard to try and paint it.
Okay. Well, remember, as I open your project in Photoshop, you're only working on one layer. So, and this is a hint to all of you, is that you can work in multiple layers. And that will, I think, free you up a little bit so that you don't feel that you're going, if you do make a mistake, it's not a big deal because you can always turn the layer off or you can revise it. So that's something that I would think about. I think there are certain elements of your painting that work really, really well, where you've, again, decimated the photograph. That if I look parts of the background, they become kind of abstracted, where you have the white and the dark and the light greens, and you've kind of blurred the branches and that sort of thing. And it also, I think the beak works really well too, where you've taken oil brushes and you've smeared, and at least you've left some of the definition of the shapes. But where I would criticize it is that, for example, if you can see my cursor here, that you have some of the parts of the background here that don't look like they've been decimated. I'm also looking at the eye too, where that probably could be simplified a little bit. And you could achieve the same result. I would also probably come back into the black and some of the breast sections here. And I would probably enhance some of the brush strokes a little bit so that they become more pronounced rather than just flat two-dimensional color, so that it has a more impressionistic appearance to it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But, there are elements of it, like I say, the beak and parts of the background. And for the most part, you have decimated the detail that you see in photographs. But, it isn't entirely gone. So I'm clearly aware that you're working on a photograph. And that's the whole point of this assignment, is to use the photograph as reference, but to eliminate any vestige of it if you can. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else have anything maybe that they want to say about Diana's? Roberto, okay. Go ahead and, whoops. Yeah, go ahead and you can talk now, Roberto. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
All right. No, I saw it. I really liked the beak the way you said it. I know I had some problems with mine too. The way I tried to blend and try to use the mixer brush, but when I zoom in, it's like it looks kind of pretty perfect. You know, when you kind of look at the beak and the color blending, I kind of like that.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really strong. And then because you get these really kind of soft edges between the colors. But the colors are so strong and bright that it really pops. And that's what you want because the toucan is in the foreground and you don't want it to blend with the background. And then by contrast, you have this really kind of scratchy quality of the background where the whites and the different greens appear. Okay, and those are just nice contrasts between the different kinds of brush strokes. And that's a way that you can play with digital painting is by contrasting textures. Not only can you contrast colors, bright colors and, strong contrast and values in the foreground, like between the yellow and the black. I mean, that just pops forward. And then when you look at the background, it does just that. It sits back. And part of that has to do with how she's used a different type of brush stroke and kind of reduce the contrast and values so that there's less of a contrast between light and dark, and that pushes it back as well. I just think, that in most cases, you kind of went halfway. And if you were to complete it and to really, not be fearful of damaging your image, worked on different layers, like maybe the blacks are on one layer and maybe the bird is on one layer, or I don't know how you want to isolate it. It would be entirely up to you. But it would be a way of being able to go back and to work in a non-destructive way, which is what I've talked about for most of the semester, so that you're not fearful of making a mistake and you can always go back and fix parts of it. Because you could, if you did the background as one layer and the toucan as another layer, at least have two layers. And then within that, you could have multiple layers as well. Just to, feel free to experiment with the different parts of the piece. Okie doke. Okie doke. So let's go back and go back to bridge and let's see what we have next. We have Andy's and Diane's. Giovanni, this is yours, right, Giovanni? Let me go ahead and allow you to talk.
Hello.
Hello, Giovanni. Hold on. Let me go ahead and open it up. So you go ahead and you talk first, and I'll let you know where I'm coming from.
So this had to be probably the most difficult I did so far in terms of the assignments. I try to pick something with nature, like everyone else. I like this image, but I had some trouble, especially with the grass, as you probably will notice. But I did try to make an illusion of having larger grass, in the forefront. I even made my own clouds in the background, actually, if you didn't notice.
Well, these are your clouds, or are these from the photograph?
These were from the photograph. The ones on the top side, top left. Like
okay.
These, yeah.
So it's sort of a mixture.
A mixture, and I corded it most on the tree. But yes, I did my best with this one.
Okay. Well, this assignment, I mean, and especially your treatment of the landscape is very similar to what we had in the exercise or the lesson from the book. If you would have taken the brushes that we used in that lesson and almost stroke by stroke did the same thing, I think it would be much stronger. Probably the biggest, or my major criticism is of it that in most instances you have not decimated the photograph. So it's clear that you've worked on top of a photograph. And so you have the clouds that are from the photograph that haven't been decimated. And you have, at least 50% of the leaves in the tree that have not been decimated. The grass in the foreground, I mean, you're on your way to doing something pretty interesting. It's more not adding to, but taking the photograph and blurring a good part of it to making it look expressionistic. Now, which brushes you choose is up to you. But again, if you took the same brushes that we used in the lessons, I think you would have a much stronger piece. So that it would add, to the texture of it and look more impressionistic.
Yes, looking back, I did realize not I haven't used that many of the different brushes, which again I think you're right. It would have made it a lot better. And I did forget about the clouds actually. When looking back, it slipped out of my head. So that's something I could have fixed if I had a chance. But
Yeah. Because again, going back to the video, the lesson in the book and the videos that we watched from lynda.com is that if you're going to leave a good part of it photographic, then why not just work with a photograph rather than turn it into a digital painting? Just to let everybody know, and this isn't specifically to you, Giovanni, but it's that there is a market for this sort of thing. I know it's difficult as an artist to make a living with your paintings. And if you don't mind doing more work that's illustrative, that a lot of work these days that's done for offices, that's done for motels and that sort of thing, they look like they're oil paintings, but they're not. They're actually work that's done in Photoshop. And they start with, a photograph of the same that this lesson is, that was lesson 10, and decimate, again, all the detail of that photograph and make it look like an impressionist painting that kind of, it's not high art by any means, but the thing that makes it worthwhile for artists is that you can print it on canvas and sell, numerous quantities of them. You're not limited to a single piece like you would with an original oil painting. And stretch them on canvas and, make a few bucks doing it. And I think that's, it's a legitimate way to make a living as an artist. It's not the direction I would care to go right now, but if I were still illustrating, that would be, something I would strongly consider. Okay. So anyway, that's the direction that we're going with that. So if you, go back and look at the finished lesson that they provide for you in the book, that's exactly kind of the direction that we're going for. And also, if you look at what John Derry did in the videos that we watched in lynda.com, they're very similar to what's done in the book. Okay. Okie doke. Okie doke. Anybody else want to chime in? No? Okay, let's look at the next one. I think would be Roberto's. Let's see. Here's Roberto. Roberto's is a little bit different. Roberto, yours is more of an illustration. And I wasn't expecting this, but let me go ahead and Roberto, let me allow you to talk. Okay, go ahead and unmute.
All right. So this is just I like Star Wars, of course. So the background, the foreground, tattooing, that one I actually kind of mixed it up with different colors in the background, so I did that myself. The sky, with the clouds. I actually did that myself as well, with the mixer brush. The mountain ridge, if you look at the bottom of the grouping, that one never really had any kind of detail to it. So all that kind of snow effect was done by me. But the thing that kind of like stood out for me the most out of everything was, I mean, my favorite part, of course, was the mountain ridge, just because that one had no definition to it. It just was bland and white. And then I kind of came in and did that. Other than that, uh, the Death Star, the Falcon, and everything else was more like of a illustration. I kind of took most of my time doing those. So if you kind of look at the other layers that I did, I kind of went literally
Right.
every single little tiny detail from every single line of them.
Okay. So you, again, followed the assignment, you know, what I had hoped pretty closely in terms of decimating the photographic qualities of it. The only thing that I think you could do to improve the quality of it would have to do with your composition. And looking at the content of the illustration within the silhouette of the, I don't know what this is called. What is this guy called back here?
The Mandalorian?
Yeah. So if, you know, everything is about the same size. So if we look at the Death Star, we look at the ship here, and we look at the one down here, they're all about the same size. So that flattens everything out. And I would think that you would want to emphasize or to create the illusion of depth within that. So probably one of the things that I would do would reduce the size of the Death Star and put it behind the silhouette a little bit, so that probably from the left side. So by cropping part of it, it would help it to sit back, reducing the size, and cropping just a sliver of it, it would help it to sit back in space a little bit. And then what I would do, what's the name of this ship right here?
Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, the Millennium Falcon. What I would do with it is I would take a little, if this is on a separate layer, which I believe it is, I would move it out a little bit so that it actually overlaps part of that silhouette. And that will bring it even more forward. And similar to what you've done here with this right here. I don't know that this little circle right here is necessary. I would take the blurred kind of sun that you have right here, and I would enhance it a little bit with the brighter color that you have for this one right here. So that would make that come forward. And I think you get a greater illusion of depth by doing that. Because right now, as I said, they're all of the images that you've used that are contained within that silhouette are about the same size. And so that tends to flatten out the illusion of space. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's difficult
and
to
then
tell
necessarily
what foreground, middle ground, and background.
Yeah, because for Tatooine, necessarily when the for the fourth installment, necessarily that's how it ends. So it has like the two suns where one is more in focus and the other one's in contrast.
Well, you would probably
I just wanted to keep it.
Okay, but you would probably, the one that's in focus, I would probably put it behind the silhouette.
Yes.
As a try, because it really dominates, that really pops, and you don't want that to be the strongest element, the strongest element in your composition. And so because it is crisp, because there's the greatest contrast, and it's the brightest color, it dominates the composition.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So when you start playing now in painting with the sharpness of an edge, the contrast between light and dark, and so you have the yellow against the dark, deep blue, black of the space, that just brings it absolutely forward. Okay, and it also resides outside that silhouette. But notice, for example, the Death Star, It's almost the same size of the head. So that just brings it to the absolute foreground with everything else in there. And the same with the ship. Oh shoot, what is it again? The
Falcon.
Millennium Falcon. And what would bring it forward again, really bring it to the forefront. I mean, in fact, it could be enlarged a little bit and let it overlap part of the silhouette, just the same way that you have with the second sun here. So if you want to leave one of the suns crisp, it needs to probably sit behind the silhouette to push it back. Overlap is a good way of creating the illusion of depth very easily. And the same thing with the Death Star, that make it sit back a little bit, reduce it in size, and then have it part of it cropped so that it sits within that silhouette a little bit.
Okay.
But the bottom down here and in here, and how you've integrated that with the background, I wouldn't touch a thing. It works nice. It's a nice backdrop to the rest of this. Okie doke.
All right, thank you.
Okie doke. Anybody else have any comments, or have I decimated it? Or it is. It's, I mean, with every piece, there's good qualities and there's areas that can be improved. Andy, want to talk? Go ahead and unmute, Andy.
Hi, yeah, I really like the overall aesthetic that you did, especially inside the Mandalorian. It has very much a collage effect, which I think is very nice. I also like how you were able to sort of make the two suns sort of pop out, especially with the second sun, how it's slowly faded out and smeared. It looked very nice. I especially like the how you're able to like got that shadowy part in the foreground. It was great. The only problem that I may have is probably just with how like the bottom of the Mandalorian sort of like disconnects with like the colors you have here. It just feels like the photos kind of been like just cut and pasted into the background, if that makes sense. And I
Wait a minute, Andy, repeat the last part again. I'm having trouble hearing. There's some humming or something going on. So go ahead. The problem that you said that you have with it?
Yeah, it's with the overall picture of the Mandalorian. Like if you look at the bottom of it, it kind of looks like the photo of it has just been added to the background, and then you have like these light oranges to represent the sand. And I kind of feel like it makes sort of a disconnect, and I maybe like you just extended like this white color down a bit more, it would have made like a slightly better, or maybe added colors to the bottom to transition to these like light oranges and dark reds. But other than that, it's a very beautiful painting.
Okay. Well, I mean, the bright colors of the background are really striking, and they really help to offset the image itself, or the images within the image. So, yeah.
I see what you mean, but I don't know. I guess just more of a personal taste of mine. I just feel like.
Well, that's what I want. I want feedback from all of you. Hear what you guys have to say. Okie doke. Well, thank you. Thank you, Andy. I'm going to go ahead and mute you. And let's see. Delvin is here. So let's go ahead and talk to Delvin. Let's see. I've got, oh, come on. Let's go bring Bridge back. And Delvin's is here. Okie doke. Okay, Delvin, you want to talk? You there?
Hello. I forgot to how should I say copy my copy my background to show the difference between my two pictures.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, my painting still turned out like very beautiful. Like it's amazing in my opinion.
Okay. No, you've treated it, pretty well. I would probably pump a little bit. Most of the colors that you used are muted, with the exception of the blue jacket.
Mhm.
And so when you use pure, true colors, or pure hues, juxtapose those against more muted tones of skin color and the grays in the background. The grays and the muted colors in the background I would leave alone. But I would pump probably more color in the flesh tones. You could probably use, instead of more muted earth tones, you could also bring some oranges in there, some yellows, some reds, and in a very subtle way. And they could be on layers on top of that would enhance the portrait and compete better with the blue jacket.
I try using some lighting on my face because that's where the sun was pointing towards my face. It was and I think it was much brighter on my neck, my neck and my hands.
Right. So more of that it's not bright per se, is that you're using less muted or truer, pure color, pure hues, as opposed to what you've used in the rest of your face. You've broken down the frontal plane and the side plane just fine. But, you might be surprised if you look carefully at the photograph that you're using, you might find some blues or violets in the shadow side a little bit, and that could be added. And then in the light side, you might find, some pinks or reds or oranges, the contrast with that. So it's almost like using complementary color. And, but, again, anytime you juxtapose muted colors against really bright, pure colors, the pure colors are going to win. And so that's what's happening with the neck, but mostly the blue in the jacket. And you've handled it. That's probably one of the strongest parts really nicely. And I like how you've broken down, as I said, the frontal plane and the side plane of your face.
Thank you.
But yeah, I think to improve it, again, you need to pump more color into it.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to add? Yes, no? Everybody kind of getting gun shy, because I might rag on them. It's not meant to say that you've done a poor job. It's just that, how can it be improved? And I hope I'm making sense. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Delvin.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I'm going to mute you, Delvin. And let's see.
All right, there we go.
Who else do we have here?
It's just not a lot of people.
No, that might be just about it for today. So let me see. We did you, Delvin. We did Andy. We did Diana. We did Roberto. Kevin, I didn't notice. Do you have anything today or no? Kevin?
No, not right now.
No? Okay.
Still trying to,
okay.
what do I say?
Yeah, I don't mean to put you on the spot. I just want to make sure that I don't miss anybody. Okay. Do you have anything to say, Catherine? Catherine is a former student of mine, so decided to sit in and critique my critique.
Oh, wait. I thought that I was sending that to you and everyone. my
Huh?
critique?
You can speak.
I did talk.
Do you want me to go back on any particular pieces?
No, so I sent chats. Did everyone get it or no?
Oh, wait. Oh my gosh, you have tons of chats that I just.
Yes. So I comment on each one.
Oh, okay. Let's go back up here.
Can everyone else see it? The chat?
Oh yeah, well, I had my chat closed by mistake. So let's go back. Why not?
Okay.
So it doesn't hurt. We can go back here. And so this is the first one, right?
Yeah. So then it feels like I'm in a car, right? The way that he's making it kind of almost like atmospheric.
Yep.
And it's going past us really fast in a blurry motion. So then I really like that.
I do too. I like it. It's clearly appears to be a landscape. And that has to do with how, the composition is ordered. So even though he's decimated all the detail, I mean, I didn't think of it that way. I mean, I'm looking at it more as a purely abstract painting, but that's a nice interpretation. So I appreciate it.
Like you can see the white on the road, right? So it feels
Down
like,
here.
those dashes in the road where.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okie doke. And then let's go to. Oh, okay. Let's go to the next one then. So this one, which one did you have here? Was this, you like the contrast between the beak and the background?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do too. That's really very nice. I think that they work well together. That's what I was saying. I think in part, it has to do with the intensity of the colors of the beak. And I also think it has to do with the brush strokes that she used. And
then also the shapes. So
yeah.
like the blocks of shapes for the branch as well as the leaves and sky that you can see through in between.
Right. But also look at the texture of the background and how it contrasts with the beak itself. The beak has these wonderful, soft, blurred kind of colors that just meld together. And the background is this sharp, kind of staccato brush strokes that complement or contrast with that really very nicely.
Yep.
And then we have this one.
Oh yeah, so the first time I saw this, I was like, dang, there's something like zooming in the sky, making these streaks of smoke and then he was like, oh, they're clouds. And I'm like, dang, this is some other universe here with these kind of clouds.
Kind of trippy. Well, Catherine, you remember the lesson in the book that we did or not? I don't know.
I don't think I took the Photoshop.
Oh, maybe you didn't.
The Illustrator.
You took it. Okay, you took photo with Chris, I think, online.
Yes.
Okay. Well, the book that we used had a very similar landscape to this. And my approach to creating a digital painting was very much like the one that John Deary illustrates in the lynda.com videos. We're taking a digital painting and decimating the detail of the photograph first. And then bringing some details back to turn it either into a more expressionistic painting, something that you would see, or an impressionistic painting, one that you would have seen at the turn of the century. That was the ideal goal. Mm-hmm. But if it went really abstract, I'm okay with that too. But when you leave elements of the photograph intact, that was something I was hoping that would be gone from the piece.
So at least kind of like blur everything so that it's almost.
That's what you start with, yeah. But
Okay.
it depends on, there are a variety of ways of doing that, and there are different brushes that are available that you're you're eliminating the detail of the photograph, and you're switching it with the texture of a brush. And you don't have to worry about composition. You don't have to worry about color. You don't have to worry about anything else. It's just, like I said, it's literally turning the photograph into a more impressionistic or expressionistic painting. So that was the goal. And let's see. Okay, so the one here. So you like the TIE fighters. I think depth, could be enhanced with how I mentioned it, but
I even feel like if one of the TIE fighters was outside of the Mandalorian in front, so it was kind of like almost flying into the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Then that would even bring more depth in. But so far, I'm seeing like the smaller ones in the back, and then there's another one that's being cut off by the silhouette. So that masking is nice.
Yeah. But I think, but again, I think the sun that's really sharp here, this second sun, dominates the composition. And I don't think you would want that. You want it to be present, but you don't want it to dominate.
I agree. It feels like it's like an afterthought where you're just placing it on top because nothing is really in front of it. So
right, exactly. So again, it's the crisp shape. It's the light, bright, intense color juxtaposed against the dark background that makes it pop forward. So you have to deal with that in some way. And then the last, let's see, how about the portrait?
So at first glance, I was thinking like, wow, this feels like, one of those photographs that been out too long or something, where the exposure is kind of off on parts of it, and then it becomes this mute side, creating this atmospheric feel to it, almost as if there's like this fog coming down on him, and then we have like a closer view of that side of his head, like the black side right there, and his jacket. So it's kind of an interesting thing.
Okay. Cool. So there we have it. There are a couple of others that you might want to take a look at, if I can go back. They're not here today. They're not able to join us. There are a couple of standouts that I think work really nicely. Hold on, let me go ahead and let's open this one. Let's hide that. This is typically more, the kind of illustrative landscape that I was thinking that most people would do based on the examples that I had shown. Again, where all of the photograph is decimated and you bring some of the detail back in. They probably could have brought even a little bit more detail.
Like I noticed a lot of people are not doing the layers, or they're merging the layers.
Yeah.
And it feels really bad because it's like a destructive way of working. So you can't get back what you merge.
Exactly.
And
no, yeah, I try to emphasize that, is that you really need to keep your layers intact. Now this one is very illustrative, but I think it's done really beautifully. So it's almost like it's done as a pastel.
It feels like there's like this very thin see-through fabric over them.
Yeah, you're looking through a gauze.
Yes. So it emphasizes that. And
Yeah.
the effects really add to that.
And you can see it's not dominant, but there's enough of it where you get these little wisps of the brush, the kind of strokey, kind of a textured brush that really lend itself to, creating the illusion that this is, that this wasn't done from a photograph at all. Although there are certain elements of it that are so close to being the proportions of a photograph and a composition that you would see in a photograph. I thought, yeah, it could be, but still they've done enough to it to really take it into another realm. So that was another one that I wanted to show. And then there's one more. Let's see. This one too has certain properties that I like, where they've decimated, it's kind of a nice cityscape. The only thing more I probably would have done to this is add just a little bit of detail back into the church. Probably where the windows are, or the darkened areas that are created, by shadows. Probably just shadows, that would be it. But I think the way that they handle the trees in the foreground and minimize the street in the front really works very nicely. So this is another good example, I thought, of moving in the direction I thought everybody would go. So any final thoughts from any of you? Just want to go home. You're already home. What am I saying? And finish up today. Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you
nice
for
to be part
joining
of
us.
this.
Yeah, I appreciate you being a part of it, Catherine. And good luck to you. Have happy holidays. I hope you had a nice Thanksgiving. I hope everybody had a nice Thanksgiving. So on Wednesday, we're probably going to watch more videos on retouching and restoring photographs. Do any of you, before we leave today, do you have any questions about the final assignment? Make sure that when you turn it in, that you turn it in as a Photoshop file, and that you keep all of the layers that you've created to show the history of what you've done. Okay. Okie doke. Okay. Well, then if we're done, and I will say goodbye to all of you. And have a good afternoon. And I will see most of you on Wednesday. And then again, we'll probably be, for the duration of the semester, we only have a week and a half left. We'll probably be watching video. And that's it while you're working on your final project, and making sure that you turn in lessons 1 through 12. Okie doke. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop the recording, and I will, bye-bye to everybody. And I will have this posted soon. Okay. Have a good afternoon.